Narset Enlightened Exile is a 3/4 human monk for 1 generic and then 1 each of blue, red, and white. Creatures you control have prowess. Whenever Narset attacks, you may exile target non-creature, non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. This was one of the desparked Planeswalkers from March of the Machine's Aftermath that I really wanted to take a look at. I think this is a very powerful commander. She gives all of our creatures prowess, including herself, meaning for every non-creature spell we cast, she'll get +1/+1 until the end of turn, as will our entire board. Prowess also stacks, so if a creature already has an instance of prowess, it will gain a second instance. The more non-creature spells we cast, the stronger the range of her second ability. Also important to note that second ability can be used to target cards that are in opponents' graveyards, so it can be used in a number of different contexts. The deck we put together is a competitive deck that's going to utilize a Jeskai Breach core, which is largely an interactive deck that aims to resolve an Underworld Breach and use it in conjunction with cards like Brain Freeze or Grinding Station to power out our win. Narset herself offers a unique twist in being able to recur an Underworld Breach from the graveyard or any of the pieces of our combo should they be sent to the graveyard. If that primary strategy fails, however, we can always pivot to one of several alternate win conditions. I do utilize some stacks pieces in an attempt to deal with some of the turbo decks and mid-range strategies that might try to outpace us. The typical Drannith Magistrate, Esper Sentinel, Ranger Captain of Eos, Cursed Totem, Mystic Remora, and Rhystic Study form a core of cards included to slow down overextending opponents who are proactively pursuing their win cons. These are some of the cards that we want to get out early on to throw off our opponents as we set up our endgame. Dress Down is also here as an emergency answer to opponents' creature-based win cons. Since we are in some aspects a Storm deck, Birgi, God of Storytelling, will help us continue pushing, especially once our combo pieces begin to assemble. Cards like Dragon's Rage Channeler can get pretty big pretty quick and can set up our graveyard for future plays by milling ourselves, hopefully hitting some combo pieces. Sevinne's Reclamation is here to help us recur those combo pieces from the graveyard, and all of our combo pieces are conveniently under 3 mana, meaning that they're valid targets for both this and a slightly boosted commander. Because we can begin to really start casting spells one after another, Aetherflux Reservoir is here as a backup plan, which can both pad our life total and be used to snipe off our opponents. Our commander presents a unique take on a normal Jeskai deck as she allows us to swing with our commander and steal non-creature spells from graveyards in doing so. We can go with something simple, like casting Gitaxian Probe to draw a card, then swing with Narset to recast the probe for another card draw. If an opponent has used their Ad Nauseam, we can swing with Narset and use it as well, provided that her power has become 6 or greater. Since we aren't required to pay the mana cost, we don't even need to figure out how to make off-color mana. I did have to do a bit of research for the ruling on this, but she can also get back permanents like our Underworld Breach. The way that her ability works, however, is if you do not cast the spell immediately after her ability resolves, the copy does vanish the next time state-based actions occur, and you would therefore miss the chance to use that spell. So while this doesn't technically give the spells she's copying flash, you do get to cast those copies immediately after the trigger resolves. This is an excellent backup plan in the event of counter wars, as if our Underworld Breach or our Twin Flame gets countered, we can always swing in with Narset to get it back. An important thing to note though is that even if the spell is countered or fizzles, the prowess trigger will still resolve and give Narset that +1/+1. As we mentioned before, our end goal is to cast and resolve Underworld Breach and then use lines with Brain Freeze and a mana rock like Lion's Eye Diamond to combo off. We cast the Breach. We cast the Lion's Eye Diamond, then crack it for mana. We cast Brain Freeze, targeting ourselves to mill with both the original spell and the Storm copies. We then escape the LED, crack it again, pay it again for the Brain Freeze, and then we repeat this until we've milled ourselves out entirely and then cast either Thassa's Oracle for a win while our library is empty, or target our opponents to mill with all the extra copies of Brain Freeze, pass the turn, and then when they can't draw a card, they lose. I also included Grand Abolisher and Silence in this deck to help give us some blanket protection while we push for our win. Alternatively, we can use Grinding Station with a mana rock that taps for more mana than it costs, which does a similar combo effect. We cast the Grinding Station, we cast Soul Ring, tap the Soul Ring for the 2 mana, sacrifice it to the Grinding Station, mill ourselves 3, escape the Soul Ring from the graveyard, which then untaps the Grinding Station. We then repeat until we've milled out entirely, which again leads into the Thassa's Oracle. Our third win condition is pretty simple and straightforward. We cast Twin Flame, which targets a creature. Hold priority, then cast Dualcaster Mage. Dualcaster Mage targets the Twin Flame and then copies the Twin Flame. That copy targets the Dualcaster Mage, which then creates a copy of the Mage. And then you repeat. We then will create infinite, hasty 2/2 wizards that can be used to simply overrun the table. One last inclusion is Chandra's Ignition, a card that I'm testing to see the effectiveness. This card relies on a creature having very high power, as it'll burn each opponent and each other creature based on that creature's power. We can even go halvesies with our commander, burning them halfway with the first resolution of this spell, then swing with Narset, recast it from the graveyard, and take care of the rest of their total. Feel free to let me know how this card works out for you. The remainder of our deck is largely value creatures, interaction, and tutors. We want to get to our combo as quickly as we can, and so cards like Imperial Recruiter, Spellseeker, Gamble, Enlightened Tutor, Mystical Tutor all help us dig for the cards that we need. Intuition is a phenomenal piece here. I think the best 3 cards to grab with this are Sevinne's Reclamation, Underworld Breach, and Lion's Eye Diamond. Regardless of which card they choose, we can get the combo going with only a little more work. We are on a good amount of counter magic as well as largely to keep problem cards handled. I'm a fan of 1-drop counters like An Offer You Can't Refuse, Dispel, Flusterstorm, Mental Misstep, Miscast, Red Elemental Blast, Stern Scolding, and Swan Song to be as efficient as possible. We do also run a few that cost more mana, we have a few free cast ones, but I generally tend to look for the cheapest counterspells that do the most for our game. Cards like Wheel of Fortune and Wheel of Misfortune are doubly useful here, as we can always get the cards that were pitched back later using either the Underworld Breach or our commander. Wheel effects also ruin our opponent's hand quality and are especially useful after they've tutored for cards. We can also steal what they've pitched with Narset as well. I hope they didn't have their win cons in their hands. Final Fortune is a fun card that gives you an extra turn after the current turn. If you use it on an opponent's end step, regardless of who goes next in turn order, you get a turn, and then generally I'll be holding this back until I'm ready to attempt a win. For the full deck list, which includes the cards that were not mentioned specifically in this video, feel free to check the Moxfield link in the description box below. You can also take a look at the mana curve of the deck, playtest the deck for yourself on Moxfield, and if you so wish, you can even buy the deck using one of the Buy Now links. That's going to wrap up our look at Narset Enlightened Exile. I think this is my favorite Narset variant. I think she's got a huge amount of power behind her, a really cool design, and I love stealing opponents' cards, so this is right up my alley. What do you think of this deck? Are there some tech in here that you include that we didn't mention here? Feel free to comment it below. I sincerely hoped you enjoyed this video. If so, likes and shares are always graciously appreciated. 95% of my viewers this month aren't currently subscribed, so if you're part of that 95%, please feel free to subscribe so you never miss a video. I appreciate you all hanging out with me here today, and I'll always catch you next video.